Hi everyone, I'm Jack the Rambling Raconteur, and I hope that you're doing well. Sorry I haven't made a video in a while. I shut my thumb in a door and basically couldn't hold a book properly for a couple of weeks, and then we've had final exams going on, but I did want to jump back in. I've got a discussion on Burning Grass by Cyprian Ekwensi, and this is a really interesting book. It was actually the second book in the legendary Heinemann African Writers series that was edited by Ekwensi's countryman, colleague, Chinua Achebe, and this is a look at rural Nigeria. So there's not the sense necessarily of the decolonization that was occurring there, of Nigerian writers and finding their voices, and Nigerian culture sort of stepping out of the shadows of colonialism. It's very much focused on small rural families, nomads, characters who are driving cattle from place to place throughout the seasons. And we focus on one family, but we see how numerous interactions occur and the different opportunities that exist for characters. And so it's a really good introduction, I think, to Nigerian literature. It provides a great sort of counterpoint to Ekwensi's other brilliant novel, early novel, People of the City. He wrote them almost like back to back in successive years. And this one is entirely rural, whereas People of the City is entirely urban. And so the tone is so different. It's interesting to see writers working in such different registers. But I wanted to give a couple of examples of what Ekwensi's voice sounds like in this work, so it might be something that you're interested in reading. So a part that sounds a little bit more almost like in a Western vein. The cattle waded into the stream before him, and he let them find their own way, retiring to a little hill some distance away. From here he could see them spread along either bank and along the flat grassland adjoining. They knew the land as well as he did, and he settled down and watched them. When the sun began to slant overhead behind the rocks, he would take them round through Dogo's farm. Dogo always liked their droppings. Jala sat with his knees wide apart, his hands resting on the stick. His eyes roved far and away over the grassland. It was odd the way this big patch of scrub seemed to behave. On market days, all the roads would be full, but on days like this, the sun beat down on the grass and thorn trees, the gardenias, and not a soul disturbed the burning paths. The grass here was becoming sour. He must think of moving camp soon. He would go northwards and seek the river banks. Presently, he thought he could detect a movement in the distance, and looking more closely, found that two figures had broken the outline of the horizon. They were both hooded and approached with a certain amount of pain and effort. Jala regarded them without interest. There were a lot of bush dwellers in the scrub, and one could not bother too much with them. But then he noticed that one of the figures was a woman, and the smaller one a child. They were chatting and pointing, and presently they turned away and vanished behind a bush. And the way that chapter opens, it's super evocative. There's this naturalism, there's this sense of the pastoral, this landscape. Jala's out with his herd of cattle, and it really focuses on nature, on the landscape, the sun, the flowers, the vegetations that there. But throughout, there's always this sense of the land being in flux, and so the people and the herds have to, be in flux. The burning grass, first, the idea that people will burn sections, literally, when it's time to move forward, or that if a village is burned, it's wiped out and it has to be rebuilt. There aren't block structures that survive a fire. It very much is this idea a fire can wipe out the town, or the village, I should say. And so the prose that Ekwensi has here vacillates between that and then deep action and a sense of almost childlike wonder at times. Like there's the main character is a patriarch, Mesunsea, who was once sort of the village chieftain, but he's essentially had some type of spell put on him that is causing him to wander off. He'll see a bird, or he'll see a flower, and he's searching for someone, but he's actually under this spell that's causing him to be itinerant. And as he's traveling, he's connecting with his family, but then falling away from them again as he leaves, and they're sort of reconnecting with each other as they try to find him and follow along with him. And so we get this panorama of rural village life and town life in this portion of Nigeria. But at the same time, there's this magical sense of what's happening and what's going on. But there's also a very heightened sense of moments of action and of violence. And so I wanted to read one section. Riku, this is my Sunsei's son, woke in the small hours of the morning. A slight unusualness in the air had awakened him. He sat up with that immediate instinct of the nomad, developed over a lifetime of exposure to danger from man, beast, and nature. It seemed to him that the cattle were milling around uneasily. He listened. No dogs were barking. But why? Had a spell been cast over them? He felt the restlessness spreading among the cattle. He heard real commotion now, as if someone was trying to stampede the bulls. "Riku!" Shetu shouted from somewhere in the dark. "Mother! Thieves! Get up, thieves!" A burst of uncontrolled movement shattered the night. Riku slid under the door of the hut and out into the night. He saw a group of men, mere shapes, emerge from the darkness. The turbaned one was whispering commands, pointing. The other two in leather bags moved with precision, their daggers gleaming. They were cutting the cattle loose. From behind a pile of logs, Riku watched them crouching. Cattle stumbled blindly past him and crashed into the huts, whipped to recklessness by the shrieking orders of the men behind them. Riku leapt aside, dodging a sharp object thrust at his ribs from behind. In an instant they had bound his hands behind his back and made off. He heard his mother and the children screaming from the other hut, felt the choking smell of burning thatch, followed by the sharp crackle of uncertain flames. Then the whole settlement burst into one blinding sheet of flame, frightful to behold. His father's huts caught one spark. His mother's hut seemed to reach out a hand and to catch another flying spark. The sparks glowed in the wind, and soon those huts crackled alight. "Libe, Libe!" Shetu cried. "Riku, don't let Libe burn to death. They have tied my hands," Riku yelled. He saw the dark figures busy with the sinister work, flitting in and out of the cattle, cutting them loose, hurrying them away. Then in one final upward surge that dazzled the eyes, Riku saw in the flaming mass the last indelible picture of his father's camp burning to ashes. He would never, as long as he lived, forget the choking smoke fumes drifting across the thorn, the upturned hoofs of the stampeding cattle, the red heart of the glowing fire that had once been a hut. He realized that the enemy had once again outgeneraled him, and his heart sank. What remained deeply impressed in his memory was that face, a glimpse of it, dark, with a golden crest on the turban, catching the playing flames with now a dazzle, now a dull glow, and the tightly set teeth from which the commands issued. And there's a real power to that passage. There are sections in this book where Ekwensi writes with a maturity and with a passion and with a sense of verb, a sense of this knife edge that characters' lives hang by. And there's something just incredibly mature in his writing here that is utterly different from the sort of almost like jazz age urban setting of People of the City, where he has a character who's just a journalist and also, playing in a band at night and is falling in and out of love and is just a mess. Here we have just a totally different portrait of life in Nigeria. And we see this side of culture. We see how characters really do believe that that a spell can alter them, can alter their will, can change how they make choices and what they care about. And there's just something incredible in seeing that contrast. So if you've never read Ekwensi, this is a great introduction to his work. He would write numerous other novels, but there's something about his early works that I think really get this sense of dash, really, of what he was capable of as a writer and what he could do. So I do recommend this one, and I have some African recommendations, but also some recommendations from sort of Westerns and writers who have a similar vibe. So of course the great sort of kickoff to Nigerian literature in modern Nigerian literature would be Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. This again has sort of a more rural setting, and we get to see characters here. It's and in Burning Grass we see characters interacting across different generations and how that's very important. But this is a great book to read, certainly. People of the City is fantastic. This is with Amusa Sango, and I'll link my video on People of the City in the description box below. Another sort of more rural look at African life, this time in East Africa, in Kenya, would be The River Between by Ngugi. wa-Thiong'o, who's is still writing and producing masterpieces. But this is one of his better works that's a little bit more of a cultural panorama and less explicitly political, although his finest novels are his political novels, Petals of Blood, Weep Not Child. But this one gives something that's a little closer to the tone of Burning Grass. Season of Migration to the North by Tayeb Salih. gives a sense of Sudan. And this is a little bit more of a person who's been away coming back to his culture and seeing how things are changed, how he has changed, and that difference. But this is another excellent book. And then finally, The Concubine by Elechi Amadi. And this is a very different work, but it looks at the interactions and relationships of an entire, all of the characters are Nigerian here. There's no sense of anyone else sort of changing what's happening for them or having a positive or negative effect on their lives. And it really is just this much more tight and focused novel. This is a good one and worth your attention. One of the things that's interesting is the way that Ekwensi expresses the idea of Nigerian Muslim culture in the rural setting, and the way that that spirituality and belief system is explored. And there are aspects of some of it that hark back to some of the ideas even found in like very old stories collected in the Arabian Nights, if you're a fan of that. But then some recommendations that aren't explicitly Nigerian literature. Honestly, as I was reading this, I thought this Burning Grass is a perfect example of something that very much is equivalent to a number of John Steinbeck's books, particularly the shorter ones like Of Mice and Men or Tortilla Flat. The shorter works that really have, they capture a world, they capture it sort of in the palm of the hand, and they let these interactions occur, but it's not belaboring any points. And so if you're a fan of Steinbeck, or if you maybe read some Steinbeck in high school, secondary school, Burning Grass is really the level of writing is a little bit more mature than that, but not significantly more mature. It's not this wild leap, and so it's very approachable, as I said. Certainly, westerns like I think the Oxbow incident sort of capture the tension that can exist within a setting like that. Similarly, Elmore Leonard's westerns, written really contemporary to Ekwensi. And then finally, perhaps All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. Folks are still reading him now, but the tone here, McCarthy's writing is very, very different. But in terms of the sudden shift between dialogue and characters being in one place and then moving, and then just shifts in register with violence, I think is something that occurs in both works really clearly and is well done in both works. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you have a favorite Ekwensi novel, if you have a favorite Nigerian novel. Certainly, I guess, Wole Soyinka's early book, Achebe, The Years of Childhood, that there's elements of that probably are comparable to what Ekwensi produced in Burning Grass. But as always, I hope everybody's doing well, and hopefully now that I can work my left hand properly, I'll be able to make a few more videos. But hope everyone's doing well. Thank you.